Now that we've got some administrative stuff out of the way, we're going to start working on our first application almost immediately. First, just one or two quick disclaimers. When we work with Nest.js, we usually write TypeScript code. So in this course, I'm going to assume that in general, you are familiar with the basics of TypeScript. If you're not familiar with TypeScript at all, or if you just need a quick refresher, I've put in a little review section at the very end of the course. So go and take that appendix very quickly. It will be titled something like TypeScript Appendix. Just go through those videos very quickly, and it'll give you a quick refresher or hopefully just a quick reminder on how TypeScript works. Now, besides knowledge of TypeScript, I'm also going to assume that you've got some general expertise, or I don't really mean to say expertise. I don't expect you to be an expert, but I'm going to assume you understand the basics of Node.js. All right, so with that in mind, our first application. What are we going to do here? Well, usually whenever we create a Nest application, we make use of a tool called the Nest CLI. This is a tool that we use from our terminal to generate a new project and run it. We are going to use this tool inside this course, but for our first project that we're going to work on, we're going to create a Nest project from scratch. We're going to write out everything required and add in all the tooling required to create a project on our own. There's a very good reason we're doing this. The first project that you and I are going to work on is going to be just a little bit challenging, and I want you to understand why that is. For this very first project, you and I are going to focus on how some internals inside Nest.js work. Now, this will be just a little bit challenging, but the reason we're doing this is that as soon as you understand how Nest internally works, everything else around Nest starts to get really easy and really straightforward. So at the very start of this course, just right away, I want to tackle the hard stuff so that we can spend the rest of the course building really interesting applications. All right, so that's the general game plan. We're going to create a very small project from scratch to focus on some behind-the-scenes aspects of Nest. Now, to get started on this, we're going to go directly back over to our terminal. You'll notice I've already got my terminal open, and I'm inside of a workspace directory of sorts. So this can be any folder on your computer. Then inside of this terminal, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Scratch. So that's going to be the name of our project. We're just going to call it Scratch because we're creating a project from scratch. I'll then change inside there, and then I'm going to generate a new package.json file, which we'll use to install a couple of different dependencies. To generate this file, I will run npm init-y, and that will generate our package.json file. I can now see it right there. We will then install a couple of different dependencies that are required to run Nest. Now, usually when you generate a Nest.js project, you're going to get a big list of different dependencies, but for us, because we're going to wire everything up from scratch, we only need a handful of very small dependencies. So let's do the install right now. I'm going to run npm install, and then we're going to install a total of 5 dependencies, and we're going to specify a very specific version for each one, just to make sure that your code and my code is 100% equivalent. So we're going to add in @nestjs/common @7617, then nestjs/core @7617, nestjs platform-express @7.6.17, and then just 2 more very quickly here, reflect-metadata @0.1.13, and then finally, very last one, TypeScript @4.3.2. And that's it. Now, I would really encourage you to double check your spelling on all these different dependencies. Make sure you're specifying the exact same dependencies at the same versions that I am. Once you've double checked that, we'll go ahead and run this command. And the installation might take a moment or two, so let's take a quick pause right now and come back to the next video and start writing up some code for our first project.